Hello and welcome to today's 10.12 developer update. I'm joined by Jean and Shoop. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah,
good cakes for you, man.
What does Shoop has to say? What does he have to say?
I don't know. He makes me feel better.
Okay, that's good.
Let's roll.
Everyone needs a Shoop in their life. Today we are gathered here to show you a few brand new cards coming with Sacred and Profane, the upcoming card drop on Tuesday. So it's very soon, and we're here. I know everyone's waiting for the finals to happen. So congratulations already to the players that made it to the finals. But we'll see who's gonna be crowned World Masters Champion later. Right now we've got a few cards to reveal, and obviously balance changes as well. We got some nerfs, some buffs prepared for you, or do we, Jean? Do we?
We do? Oh man, I didn't bring anything, so I sure hope you did.
Yeah. I've got something prepared.
Okay.
I'll just make it up along the way. But I think some people think that's how we do it anyway. So let's kick things off with the first brand new card. We already saw a card from this faction, so. Yeah, maybe this fits into the whole theme. Let's see, maybe it's something brand new. Here's the first look at TORRES var EMREIS founder. And you might wonder why there is a little founder there. Well, it's the first version of this evolving card, so why don't we get into it. It's a 14 provision card, high-end card for 4 power. It's a human aristocrat cleric, and also it's got doomed, so already negates a few strategies that try to exploit this. And its ability text reads, deploy, give spying to 3 units with provision costs of 10 or less from your opponent's deck, and then spawn base copies of them in your deck. Boost self by 1 for each provision below the limit, and then the order reads, banish up to 3 cards from your starting deck from your deck. When in hand or deck, evolve after you win a round. So this is the evolve effect that we have been introducing with this card drop, right? When in hand or deck, evolve after you win a round. So that excludes the graveyard, but if it's in your hand or deck, it's actually going to be evolving. So what can you tell me about this card, John?
Well, quite an influential one, right? Like, you get a lot of information about your opponent's deck. You get to set up your own deck with a few cards that are going to be assimilate triggers, right? Because they didn't start in there. And you even get to put a few spying already if you're playing down that route of synergies. Also, what should be considered is that we kind of gave it this amphibious assault treatment, right? Where if you pick very high-hand cards, you don't have a lot of tempo. But if you pick a lower-ended card and you kind of, break your own deck, then you can get to pretty high value on TORRES, actually. If you only pick 4 provision cards, that's 6 times 3, and that's 22 points on the board. God damn.
Quite a lot. So I guess with all this flexibility, maybe you should be called TORRES var EMREIS All-Rounder instead of Founder. But okay, let's take a look at the...
in this. It should also be pointed out that the order is a way to kind of counterbalance the lack of consistency that you will get from the deploy, as it kind of allows you to remove some bad stuff from the deck. But it is limited to cards that actually started in there, because we don't just want you to take bad cards from your opponent's deck, get a lot of tempo, and just remove them right away. You do have to run these cards.
Well, I wonder if there's some cards that might benefit from, just being in the deck at the start, but then being banished. Some low provision cards maybe that you want to get rid of straight away.
Yeah, that's very likely.
Very likely. So let's take a look at the second version, TORRES var EMREIS Highest Priest, and he's still a human aristocrat cleric for power 14 provision. That stays the same, but his ability now reads assimilate, deploy, return an allied unit to your hand and give it doomed, excluding self, then play a card. I know this ability. Jean, what have you done here?
Yeah, so something I actually really like about this pattern of card we're introducing in Sacred and Profane is how we can expect you to play them at a specific moment of the game, and then we kind of tweak the ability around this. So, for instance, with the Founder version, what we want you to be doing is play around with the cards that you have added to your deck. But you only get to do that if you've actually played it early enough in the game. And that's what we can ensure with the Founder version, right? Because you only get to play it in round 1, maybe round 2. And then when you get to round 3, we remove that ability, and then you get this simple but very impactful one that basically allows you to replay any card that is on your board, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I must say, I specifically love the fact that, you might have mentioned it somewhere already, that these cards are different from the previous evolving cards, or evolution cards, where they got strictly better, in a sense, while these actually give you flexibility and different purpose in different rounds, which is really cool.
Yeah, we wanted to play around with this idea of dilemmas, and you have to pick one of these effects, and you're not gonna get to play the other one, right? So yeah, Thunder sounds like a really cool thing, but at the same time, Highest Priest exists, and that's an also really impactful effect.
Exactly. Now, during Masters on day 1, on the Saturday, we already saw the reveal of Tyr, the Skellige card. So why don't we take a look at the other Skellige card? Oh, coming right up here, and it's Svalbard, also a known face, or I don't know if you could really describe that as a face, but he's got 10 power, 13 provision, is a beast, and his ability reads: deploy, damage all units by 1. Whenever a bear abomination enters your side of the battlefield, repeat the deploy ability. The first time you deal 6 damage to units each turn, spawn Svalbard Fanatic on this row. Okay. It's a big boy.
All I can say is that Svalbard is back, and, you know, he creates fully around them, like everyone gets damage, everyone's on the same level, even himself. But obviously, if you run this card, what we expect you to be doing is make sure that you actually benefit from your own units getting damaged. And so Svalbard is meant to support this specific type of stealth wound that isn't necessarily the tall version that we can see with, you know, Melusine and whatnot, but more of a wide version, right? Where you're running cards like the Bear Witcher Mentor, I believe, and the Boar also, right? Cards that wants a lot of units to be damaged and are gonna get big value out of it.
Yeah, a big chunky beast. I'm going to be interested to see what the most optimal way of playing this card is, because I feel like there's a few different approaches. Just having a 10 power beast, another one of those, is also quite interesting. Maybe gives you some more flexibility. All right, moving on to Bourge's green favorite faction now. We already had a reveal of the Squire-Tell card by our awesome caster Lionheart. And Jean. Jean has really been doing some overtime here. So there's one more left to reveal, and let's take a look at Quarixes, or Quarixes, depends how you want to pronounce it. A 5 power 13 provision relic card, and it has Harmony, and whenever you play another relic, spawn and play Locfane Convergence. Okay, so there's yeah, please Jean.
Some of you that have seen the reveal with Lionheart might have remembered him pointing out that Dana was a relict. Interesting, he would point that out.
Interesting.
And yeah, what can I say? Well, with the buffs we did to Harmony in 10.7, the introduction of a card like Chameleon allowed Harmony to become less restricted in terms of the categories it ran, and we notably saw that the leader ability Call of Harmony wasn't played as much. So Quarixes as a card aims at giving you big incentive to actually run Call of Harmony and relicts in general. And you can even expect some relics love to happen in this bench patch. Not a lot, but enough to be interesting. Awesome. And for those of you that don't remember, Locfane Convergence is this card that usually was spawned by the Locfane scenario, which will allow you to create a bronze Squire-Tell unit of a primary category that is not on your board, guaranteeing that you will get an Harmony trigger. So not a lot of relicts you can play, but every one of them is going to count a lot in terms of triggers and points.
Awesome. Lots of points for Squirtle. Now let's see what the enemy of Squirtle has prepared. We already saw Sealy reveal the goddess herself, MELITELE. I'm quite jealous of that reveal. But it's only right that with MELITELE joining the game, we also have the Temple of MELITELE, right? Mm-hmm. Congregation being its first form. A location. It's doomed, immune and resilience. So quite a lot of tags already on it. It also has a big deployability, saying create a legendary unit from your faction that is not in your starting deck 3 times, and then shuffle them into your deck. Order, draw a unit of your choice and boost it by your hand size. Then shuffle a card back to your deck. While in hand or deck, evolve after you win a round. So as usual, the first version of this card, and quite a lot of flexibility once again with this one.
Yeah, so with MELITELE supporting this kind of shuffling archetype, we also wanted the Temple of MELITELE to play in that same fashion. So this first version of the Temple of MELITELE, well, obviously there's the order, that's one more shuffle that you're going to be able to do, and with that big boost on top of it. But even the deploy, well, when you're playing that shuffling deck, you can expect to get a lot of consistency actually out of it. Like, you get to see a lot of your deck and get to manipulate your hand a lot. And so even though you are losing some consistency by adding these big cards to your deck, we think it can be a very cool way to profit from like all of that consistency that you already have.
Awesome. So how does the second half of this card, Pilgrimage, the second version, actually play into this then? It has deploy, shuffle an allied unit back to your deck, and then shuffle an enemy unit of the same power or less back to your opponent's deck. And then the order reads, play the shuffled unit from your deck.
Well, I kind of consider Pilgrimage to be kind of very improved casting contest version, you know, where you're not limited to bronzes, you are going to be able to replay the card you've shuffled back to your deck, and more importantly, you can even use it as removal, right? As long as, like, and even toll removal if you're willing to sacrifice some boost that is on.
Yeah, so lots of shuffling going on here in Northern Realms. And alright, I think that is it for the Northern Realms faction. Now, up next would be monsters, but Thea Beastie and you already did an awesome job of revealing Lilith's Omen. I think that has to be my favorite card art of this whole release. I mean, it's kind of the typical edgy one that I kind of like in Gwent, but there are certainly other ones that people will maybe flock to, like MELITELE I think is also really, really awesome. The other card, I think we'll reveal that a little bit further into the future. I think it plays a really nice role in the trailer. Yes, we will actually have a trailer coming out for this card drop. So, won't spoil it now. Moving on to the next faction, and that would
wonder what's that card?
Well, let's keep people guessing for now. Let's hide our faces and quickly move on to the next faction, being Syndicate. And here we've got the one and only Saint Gregory. First version being called Justicar, a human cleric fire sworn, 5 power, 14 provision, also doomed. And then the deployability reads, boost stealth by 1 for each unit you control, and gain a coin for each Firesworn card you control. And then also it has the evolving text.
Yeah, Saint Gregory is pretty straightforward, honestly. He's focused on wide board synergies, and, well, more particularly Firesworn synergies, because, come on, if you're playing wide in Syndicate, you don't get that many options in the first place. And yeah, a card that is going to get a big amount of tempo, good points value, and that you can easily drop in 1/1 if you want to gain control.
What more do you want? Power and coins. So let's take a look at the second version, Martyr. And this one doesn't only have Doom, but also Insanity, and its deployability reads, damage an enemy unit by the number of Firesworn cards on this row. Fee 2, damage an enemy unit by 1, and then Berserk 1, boost all allied Firesworn units by 1, and damage all enemy units by 1, then destroy self. Okay, so this one seems like a bit more aggressive than the first version.
Yeah, absolutely. And we played around with the idea of Martyr and actually St. Gregory making a martyr out of himself by clicking his Thea with Insanity until it triggers its own berserk. Yeah.
That's very flavorful, I must say.
And you'll get a lot of points out of it. So, pays out to be a martyr.
You'll have to see it. All right. There's a second card for Syndicate that we want to show you, and that is Count REUVEN'S Treasure. A resilient card, a resilient artifact, and it has profit 0. Increase the profit by 1 for each crime in your starting deck. And then it reads, deploy, create a bronze crime with provisions equal or less to the excess coins gained from the profit. Whenever you gain coins, gain counters equal to excess amount gained, and at the end of your turn, lower the counter by 1 and gain a coin. Counter 0. So there's lots of keywords here and lots of counters that count each other in a sense. So why don't you please help me out here?
Yeah, so Count REUVEN'S Treasure kind of joined the ranks of these more experimenty syndicate cards that we've printed in the past. Kendall being probably the most common, famous example out of them. And so it basically acts as a second pouch, right? Where the card is going to stick on the board for two rounds, and every turn it's going to tick down and give you back the coins that you should have lost through excess profits, right? And one thing to consider is that so the deploy gets you a crime based on the excess amount of coins you've gained. So you're kind of expected to play Count REUVEN'S Treasure when you already have some coin in your pouch and with like a big profit value, right? So not only are you gonna get the crime, but also this is from the get-go gonna get counted in the counter, right? Like giving you an initial base of coins to take back from the treasure.
I see. So now your opponent not only has to keep track of your one single pouch, but also your hidden treasure. Well, not so hidden, it's going to be obvious on the board, but still. One more thing to keep in mind while playing against the shady syndicate.
In a way, it's a form of tax collector with a few more conditions on it.
A few more steps. Okay, that's it for Syndicate. Both cards now revealed. And with that, we will conclude this segment and move on to the balance changes that are also coming with update 10.12, so this Tuesday. And I think we can start right away with the, infamous, I will say, RENFRI.
Oh my god.
And there's actually two things that we changed here. I think we can straight up call it nerfs. The first one being RENFRI Blessing of Kindness. It now reads, the first time you play a unit on your side of the battlefield each turn, and then the old effect continues. And then also RENFRI Curse of Sloth has been nerfed. Now you get to play a bronze unit from your hand and then look at the top 3 units from your deck and draw 1.
Yeah, so RENFRI is still quite a bit of a hot topic among the community. But our perspective on it is that we're actually quite satisfied with the way the card settled after the 10.8 nerfs. In particular, the card used to be run in like pretty much all decks, and it moved to the space where there's like very dedicated decks that want to use it. The 2 main deck lists being the Vampire Monster deck list and the Nilfgaard midrange one. And we think, in terms of space, in terms of the number of deck it is, in terms of the representation of the meta, we think that's fine. That being said, the NG midrange deck in particular has been on the top of the meta for a few months. It used to be because of Nausicaa Sergeant, then it really used Spotter, and more recently it got to use this new NG Knights as like this new midrange package it's making use of. We think that this is mainly an issue coming from the deck itself rather than RENFRI, but we still decided to iron out some of the options of RENFRI that are kind of universally considered to be more desirable.
Yeah.
The first one of these is Blessing of Kindness, where at the start of when RENFRI was released, it wasn't necessarily directly acknowledged as the stronger option. With time, it really solidified as people got used to playing around it. The thing is, our intention with it was to allow you to conditionally get 2 points per turn. And obviously, if you're able to play more cards than this, well, you get more points per turn. And we thought that it was fair to lock it to that initial intention of, no, only 2 points per turn maximum.
Makes sense.
And when it comes to Curse of Sloth, it kind of dodged nerfs in 10.8. But this time we wanted to limit a bit the effect. So instead of being able to draw any cards from your deck, you're going to be limited to the top 3. This is not necessarily major in terms of change, but it will create some consistency loss. And I think this is going to make the option less universal, less something that you should always take if it's offered to you.
All right. That brings us to the next neutral card that we're going to be changing right here. So All God is actually part of our little spicy winter event. I won't say too much about it, but we have a little bit of a change right here, also to offering, because it is now included in All God's text. All God, first of all, got a point buff, but also you have to pay 1 more provision. And he still boosts 3 units in your deck by 2, but now increase the number of targets by 1 for each offering in your starting deck. And then offering was changed to destroy a unit with 4 power or less, and then boost an allied unit in your deck by 2.
Yeah, with All God being on the spotlight, we wanted to give him a bit of love. So the first main thing is this reward to offering, which offering was a weird card, and the only uses we ever really saw of it were more me than anything, and are probably not really relevant anymore now that there are more ways to copy. So this new offering version is a special kind of removal, right? That is able to, ignore stuff like armor and shield, but at the same time is more likely to brick if there isn't a target that is found. And the reward for using it is similar to All God, right? You get to put a boost in your deck.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to All God, we added this new effect where you're going to be able to pick more targets if you have actual offerings in your deck, allowing you to set up more carryover, but also to get more units boosted, meaning that in a way it's more consistent. You are more likely to actually find one of these units that you've boosted through All God in your deck.
Awesome. Great change. And speaking of change, we've got the Doppler, who also received a little bit of a buff. First of all, now it's 2 power instead of 1, and a brand new ranged ability, which now reads boost self by 1 for each unique primary category among units in your hand. So, go on.
Yeah, so Doppler definitely was one of these old and really forgotten cards. So our idea was that instead of Doppler being only about mono category decks, which was always a bit weird because if you're playing mono category, why are you running Doppler? We also make it work with multi-category decks, right? So with mainly in mind Harmony, but let's be honest.
Yeah.
The thing is, the card by itself is not necessarily that amazing for Harmony, but it is a relict. And with Core Access, that changes everything, right?
That is quite a nice tag now to have, true. Alright, moving on to Nilfgaard. First of all, Guillaume de l'Enfal is being reduced in power, now only 2 instead of 6. That's quite a drastic change, but at the same time, he now boosts self by the number of allied knights on his row. So, I guess in some cases, if you don't have the knights in your game plan and on your board, even on the row, it's definitely less points, but you can kind of play around if you actually play him in a knight deck, right?
Yeah. Guillaume was this main engine powering the, NG Knight mid-range package, because it was able to multiply the value of boosts. And this is a common trend you're going to see in the changes we've done to NG, is we wanted to hit the mid-range package, but we do think that the full-on deck is actually fine, the full-on NG Knight deck. And so we wanted to make sure that changes we would do to nerf the mid-range package wouldn't necessarily affect the proper NG Knight deck. So in this case, well, if you're just running at mid-range, you're at best going to get 1 or 2 Knights. So Guillaume gets like quite a power nerf reduction. But if you're actually playing a bunch of Knights, you can expect him to be on the same power level or even have more power than he used to.
Awesome. We actually have quite a few Nilfgaard changes, so let's take a look at the next slide where we have Milton, Palmerin and Spotter all getting a nerf, either by provision or by power, and Ivar, well, you could say it's a nerf in a sense, even though he gets a power, because usually you trade him to the opposite side, which means that the opponent now will have 1 more power.
Yeah, so let's talk first about Milton and Palmerin. Palmerin actually a buff going from 8 provision to 7, while Milton is a nerf going from 6 to 7.
Oh yeah.
The idea here is that Milton was part of the mid-range package, right? But that wasn't the case of Palmerin. So this kind of funky provision exchange allows us to, again, punish the mid-range package, but when it comes to the actual NG Knight deck that is going to expect it to be run both Milton and Palmerin, the total amount of provision for the combo is the same.
It's actually kind of cute now that they both have 7 provision, I must say.
Yeah. And when it comes to Ivar, so obviously the change is a nerf in the sense that on its pre-adrenaline effect, the exchange you're doing is worth 2 less points in total. But what is slightly interesting is that if you like, if he was being bricked for you or this kind of stuff, on post-adrenaline it is actually 1 more point, right? Because then his base power is higher, and you're only damaging by 9, right? By 4. And finally, when it comes to Spotter, even though we nerfed it on the previous patch and it added a decent effect on its play rate, the card is still quite solid and dominant. So we decided to go with 1 more nerf, this time power.
Yeah, 3 power seems enough for a Spotter on a tree. Alright, next up, Imposter and Tibor. First of all, Imposter gets a little bit of an addition where whenever you play an aristocrat on your side of the battlefield, if there are at least 4 different statuses or stati on your opponent's side of the battlefield, boost it by 1. And then Tibor drops a provision, so a little bit lighter to run.
Yeah. With the Release of Artfane, we're doing a bit of support for statuses and aristocrat. And, well, Imposter was kinda the leader ability for that deck ever since we made that tweak in 9.0 where we made some synergies with statuses. But we felt like the ability could benefit from having a clear incentive to play around the strategy, right? And so the goal of this passive isn't necessarily to bring in a lot of points, but now it kind of gives you this objective of, okay, I want at least 4 different statuses to be on the board, and that's going to give me a bit of reward, right? And when it comes to Tibor himself, it's a card we've been very careful about because, as players probably know, there was this usage in Imperial Practitioner spam decks. But things kind of settled, and honestly, even though it produces really oppressive and silly rounds, the deck never really developed. It has very poor win rate. It is quite abusable if you push it in round 1. And as such, we think that lowering the provision isn't really going to affect that Imperial Practitioner deck, but it will make the card easier to run in the deck it was properly designed and intended for, which is the Saddest deck.
Yeah. Alright, up next, a card from Syndicate that loves jumping onto our dev streams, loves being in the spotlight. So it's Tunnel Drill, once again. A 5 power, 7 provision card that people have seen in many Syndicate decks. Now, Profit 2, Fee 2, damage an enemy unit by 3. Okay, I like where this is going. Cooldown 1. Whenever you play a crime, reduce the cooldown by 1. Okay, I see what you did there.
Yeah, so in 10.11, we made changes to REUVEN'S Mastermind. in order to target the Tunnel Drill combo.
Yeah.
These changes did not produce what we hoped they would. Tunnel Drill stayed a very, very popular combo, and players were more than happy to run Congregation. Not Congregation. Help me, Ryan.
What do you mean?
Collusion.
Collusion.
Very happy to run Collusion if it meant having this Tunnel Drill on the board, able to get a lot of stuff with a lot of coins. What we concluded is that having both a fee that is spammable and is gonna give you control, and an advantageous combined like coins and points exchange, that cannot be allowed to coexist.
Yeah, you can't have both. You can't have the cake and eat it.
And the thing is, we already have a card that is a spammable control fee. That's worse than Freak Show. So our idea is that, okay, so Tunnel Drill Identity is more geared toward having a good damage to coins exchange, but we gotta restrict it, and that's why it's now locked under cooldown, but there isn't any condition anymore on getting the good exchange, right?
All right.
We did leave some synergies with tactics, where if you get a tactics, you're actually going to be able to use the fee again. Mm-hmm. So this way, you might still be able to use it to, maybe if you're really smart, 3 times on the same turn. But that's it. And when it comes to Sigi Riven Mastermind, we will monitor how he reacts after these changes, and consider a potential revert of the changes we did in 10.11 if we think they are necessary.
Interesting. Yeah, the Mastermind usually reacts quite cleverly, so I think Skellige players are also always very clever. So Swanrich and Drake have been changed. Why have we made these changes, Sean?
Honestly, old school cards that didn't really see a point in their current form. Sverige Tursic used to be about blood first and would just boost itself. Dragbondu was this kind of old design of what we call the Lord cards that just say, hey, +1 to all of the cards from my category.
Yeah.
So instead, since we are supporting Warrior and Graveyard interaction with Tier, we kind of took this opportunity to come back to them. In the case of Svanrik Tursic, we made it synergize with cards going to the graveyard, and kind of opened this possibility of playing it as a mini heist Tursic, especially if you're like playing that same leader ability, right? Mm-hmm. And when it comes to Dragbondu, well, I'm gonna go with the lore thing, but his Songs of Past Glory warms up the bone of old Skellige warriors.
I like that.
So yeah, basically it improves the card in your graveyard, and that way when you actually resurrect them, they're gonna come back even stronger.
Even stronger warriors out of the graveyard. That's what Skellige loves. There's 2 more cards that we want to highlight in the 2 remaining factions. First of all, monsters, and monsters get a change to Ruin. First of all, only 3 power now instead of 4, but with the changed text, which now reads Deathwish, summon self from your graveyard to your melee row and consume your lowest power unit, excluding self. Very nice.
Yeah, so for a long time, Ruin and Deadlife have kind of been fighting for very similar design spaces, actually. Well, there are cards that, on Deathwish, come back from your graveyard one way or another.
Yeah.
This rework at Ruin kind of aims at making it feel more special, and doing so by giving him a consume on Deathwish, right? So every time you consume him, you get another consume, basically. We'll see how this reworks ends up working out, and if we need to come back to it, we will.
I'm putting you on the spot right here, but if you have multiple ruins on the row, do they all exclude ruins, or can one ruin eat another ruin?
Yeah, we did put this hidden restriction of a ruin is not able to consume another ruin, because we very quickly saw that this could degenerate.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Nice. All right, 1 more to go, and now we go to Northern Realms. And here we have Griffin, Witcher, Mentor. Now reading Deploy, draw your top unit and boost it by 1. Then shuffle a card from your hand back to your deck. Adrenaline 4, draw your 2 top units and boost them by 1. And then shuffle 2 cards from your hand back to your deck instead. What can you say about this one?
Well, Griffin Witcher Mentor was originally designed with our Griffin in mind, right? And the card never really hit the mark, especially due to our Griffin never really hitting the mark and being limited to meme strategies.
Sorry, Crozier.
Things happen. Anyway, so this change kind of aims at pivoting the card toward more of the shuffling archetype. So you get 1 more point on non-adrenaline, but way more importantly, you get 2 shuffles at the same time on adrenaline.
The double shuffle.
Which means you get to potentially move back to your deck both Melitele and Traveling Priestess at the same time. More triggers, right?
Pretty nice. All right. I think that concludes our little look at the upcoming balance changes and also the cards that are coming with the card drop on Tuesday. So lots to play around with. I'm excited to try it out myself. And Jean, is there anything left to say? I think there was one mention that you wanted to do about the game modes, right?
A few precisions, yeah. So in the last 2 expansions, we've had this Trial by Fire seasonal where people could test the new cards. This time we're not doing it, mainly because we felt like it didn't make as much sense due to the fact that we have a lower amount of cards and they're more spread across different strategies. So it would have been kind of weird to have like a deck with only 1 new card.
Yeah.
So yeah. Instead, what you will be getting is the Our Battle Will Be Legendary seasonal that we announced last time, but due to issues on our end, didn't end up making it. So hopefully this time you will be able to play it.
Hopefully it will truly be legendary this time around.
Truly.
Well, that's it from us. I think the actual truly legendary battle is about to start right after this video because it's going to be time for the World Masters Finals. Can't believe it's already been a year, another year of Gwent and esports. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, John, for taking the time, and Shoop as well, for giving you comfort. And let's all say bye together. Bye.
See you, everyone.